Hey everyone, this is the design pair session on March 9th, and the topic today that I have is going over our group level environments proposal before I jump into the solution validation for it next month or next milestone. As like a kind of a preamble to this, I know a lot of people on the release team have already reviewed this design. I'm not sure if everyone's seen the most recent one that has come out. Oh, hey Timo. Cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone has seen the most recent group level environments design, but I wanted to use this meeting as kind of an overview of what's been done so far, how we got there, and kind of what I'm looking for in the solution validation, as well to get some fresh eyes on the concept if anyone has any like questions or feedback before I kind of share out the concepts with some of our users. And then if we do want, I've dedicated the last 20 minutes if there's any oh, sorry, Anna just needed admittance to this meeting, so hey. Cool. So just to give a quick overview, we're going to spend some of this meeting going over the group level environments design that I had proposed, and that's going into solution validation. And then I've put aside some time at the end for anyone who might have questions about ongoing issues for design or just needs kind of my feedback on something. So I'll put the last 20 minutes of this meeting kind of towards that if we have things that come up. Cool. But the basic thing is, for those who don't know, the group level environments project itself has come out of the fact that you can see all your environments at the project level by viewing the environments page. But if you have multiple projects within a group, we don't really give you an option other than the environments dashboard to really see your environments within that group. And the environments dashboard itself has a bunch of usability problems. It can't really be shared. Some environments just don't give you right information on it, or the information doesn't load properly. There's a bunch of usability issues with it. So this issue is really about showing production environments at the group level, giving people a good overview of what is happening to their production environments without having to dig into every project. So does anyone have any questions before I continue?
I do.
Yes.
What are the user, the more specific, so I'd say, you told us one user problem here, that is that like users won't have to need to open specific projects to get some overview of the environments. Do you have more specific user problems that you can share with us?
Yeah, so some of the other, so the main user problem we're trying to solve for here is we want an area that kind of like, I guess, team leads or kind of people at that level can go and just view all their production environments, see the status, see if there's anything wrong, and then you can kind of dig in. We're also having an area to show metrics across because there has been some ask to understand kind of like the metrics going on at this level. So that's why in the proposal, we do have the DORA metrics at the top to kind of give an overview of that. And then as well, there is the user problem where the group level environments dashboard is not shared across users. So you can set it up for your own account. But this is solving the team need to have kind of like that view at a higher level that not everyone on the team has to set up their own dashboard. So those are kind of the three main kind of user needs we're solving for here.
Thank you.
I know Andre raised his hand as well.
Yeah, just to add a little bit of perspective here is basically if, for example, a team is working in a distributed services application, then GitLab actually has very limited capabilities to support this kind of setup. One of the use cases is basically, okay, you want to see what is deployed to your production environment from different projects that you have. Or if something is wrong, just like Emily said. And there is no simple way to do it. So people have to rely on third-party tools. So it would be great if we could actually provide something like an overview for this case.
Yeah. And to add one more thing, we had this as a task during the CMS, the category maturity scorecard for environment management, and it's scored pretty low, monitoring environments across a group, because I think the two main ways people did this is they either tried to set up the environment dashboard and that wasn't successful at all in every scenario, or they went and manually checked every single project within the group, which also took forever. They were able to get the task done, but it wasn't a very great way of doing it. So this is kind of backing the CMS, and will hopefully up our score there as well.
Cool.
Awesome.
Do
So,
we have, sorry,
oh
do
yeah.
we have any aggregated feedback from this CMS study?
Yeah, so I can actually link that. I have a dovetail where I kind of went over the feedback, as well as we scored it using a Google Sheet, which kind of showed how I think we asked them 3 questions, and based on their answer from 1 to 5, easy to hard, of those 3 questions, we were able to get a score. I believe the score we got was in like the C range. So it wasn't like we passed. We went up a level to minimal. I think it was minimal. But I can share that out after as well, because some of the feedback that came out of that was pretty interesting. Especially because people were looking for a way to see this in the group level side nav, and they couldn't find an environments area. So it's interesting that they went there first before kind of searching elsewhere.
Did you ask why? Or do you remember the answers?
I do remember someone said like, oh, I thought there was an environments area on the side nav. And then when they looked into it, they're like, oh, that's only at the project level. So someone had remembered that you could get to an environments area from that left nav. I guess they didn't realize it was only in the project section.
Yeah,
Not
but, I mean, like specifically, why are they looking at it at the group level?
I guess so that was the scenario I put, is for your group, you want to kind of view the status of your environments. So that kind of, I guess, led them into the group level. We didn't quite
Okay.
ask, but that would be an interesting question if you weren't leading them into that scenario from the start.
The reason why I'm asking that, to me, it's not surprising actually, but because as I was running many user calls, it seems to be pretty a typical pattern that, like what Andrea said, that like a group in a microservices setup, for example, a group would contain all the microservices that compose an application, or sometimes even multiple applications. I just wanted to know what your insights were here.
Yeah. The other insight is the top nav environments dashboard. The only people that opened it up knew it was there. The people who manually went through every project, they weren't aware that there was even anything up there on a dashboard perspective. So that was an interesting insight too, is people weren't going up there to see if there was anything there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So I'll share my screen just to give some context. So when we were looking into this, it was kind of hard to organize a user journey around this, because it was really, you were coming to a page to view status. So what I kind of did here was took the user journey and kind of put in some tasks people may be doing at the group level. So checking the status of deployments of their projects, checking the health of their environments, checking what is currently deployed. So I kind of put this together as like a base of how I would craft this page up. And then if I can figure out where my mouse went. we kind of landed on something like this. So what we did is we took out a lot of the information that you see at the project level because we're aware that this page, you didn't need to see all the information we were sharing at the project level. You really were interested in like a few things here, being like what project this is part of, what environment this is part of, what the status of that environment is. So these statuses are coming in from that new proposal Shinya has put in, where we have healthy, attention, and critical. This just makes it a lot easier to see at a glance what's going on versus our current available and stopped, which doesn't give you much information. You can kind of see the information based on what is deployed, but we're really looking into how do we share the environment information so you can dig deeper into that later. Then we simplified what we're showing for what's recently deployed. So we show the most recent activity as well as what is coming up. So what has successfully been deployed, and if there's something upcoming, as well as the commit and who triggered it. And then if you want to get into more, you can just click the environment name, and that brings you to that environment details page so you can dig in a bit more. We also wanted to share the DORA metrics at the top because these are things that people would want to see at a glance. It gives a good overview of what's kind of happening across your project, as well as a way to filter and search through these environments based on status, name, and like sort them by most recently deployed and all of that. So this is the most recent version of it, but we do want to mock up a version that uses actual real data to test. This is my fake data put in just to see what it could look like. But I think a more realistic version would be working with someone to kind of sub in actual information into this prototype.
Is my understanding correct that this is populated automatically from all the environments with a production environment tier?
Yes. So actually, I wonder if I have that here somewhere. Did I upload it? Oh, it's in this one. So if you don't have production tier set up, we kind of will prompt you here on how to start using environment tiers as well. So if you come to this page, you don't have tiers set up, there's a prompt into using that too. But yes, it's automatically populated. So we're getting rid of that manual setup process of the environment dashboard that we're currently running into problems with.
And what happens if there are subgroups? So this is not a top level group, but I mean, this is a top level group and there are not just projects under it, but even other groups.
It's actually a good question because we didn't mock up a version of this of what it would look like with subgroups, because I assume that would be, you'd have to double up this area here because this is currently where we're showing the group and then the environment, or project, then environment, but within groups, we'd probably have to design up that top bar a little bit different so you can see where things are coming in, or potentially we adjust this page. Yeah, that's a good question though, because we haven't actually designed this for subgroups. So that's something I should definitely look into. Do you have any ideas of how that could look?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I thought that your answer will be that it always shows only the direct descendants, but I'm not sure whether that's the right approach.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It would be interesting maybe if we could somehow aggregate like a subgroup status and have that as a card instead of having, because I think like if you have a lot of deeply nested groups, you'll end up in a position where it's too many environments to manage on this page.
Yeah, my second thought was something similar, like even having collapsibles for each subgroup. But then what happens with the subgroup of a subgroup? So it's, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but having
so
that
just
that aggregated status, that sounds like a good idea. In which case, I would love to see that aggregated status here on this page as well, actually.
Yeah.
So it's not like as a single yellow or red or green label that everything is good.
Within that group. Yeah, I know we've gotten some pretty feedback about the collapsibles in the environments page itself. So if we do go that route, we'd have to look into it because I know people do not like the collapsible.
And I totally understand them. So.
So I like the idea of aggregated. I think I could probably mock up a version of this too that we could test to be like you have imagine you have a group with a bunch of subgroups and you come to this page. Is this what you would expect? And kind of do a test in that too. So thanks.
But then the trick is that then you have to be aware of that there might be a group that has a bunch of subgroups that can have subgroups as well, but it might at the same time it might have direct projects too. So you want both to be visualized somehow. And anyway, we have to add that. I didn't want it to stop the discussion with this.
No, I appreciate bringing it up, especially if we scale this to be more than just the production tier. It's going to start getting messier and messier. So it's something I think we should think about right at the beginning. So thanks for bringing it up, because I think it's something we definitely need to look into.
I know that I brought up the other question a couple of months ago, which is that simply using production tier can be pretty misleading, because what if I have one production deployment in US, another one in Europe, and it's like I basically see everything twice.
Yeah. So that's if you have multiple production. Would there be any naming conventions that would differentiate those? Is there anything that we could use to kind of differentiate that one is in like Americas, one is in Europe, that we call out? Or is there like the naming?
I think so. That would be my guess, but I'm not sure. I never run user interviews specifically on environments because that was not my scope.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Maybe I think a lot of people are actually using slashes in environment names to kind of group them to, I don't know, regions or
that was my guess.
Dimensions.
Yeah.
Because we will port over the environment name itself. So hopefully if they are naming them differently, you'd be able to see the difference here. But I think this is also where we'll be able to see problems when we port in actual data into this prototype.
Actually, sorry, I followed on with Timo's thought, and I think how I would go with slashes, because I would do slashes as well, would be that I would have a production top level segment /Europe/US.
Oh, see, I would do it the other way around.
Would you?
Yeah, I would have an Americas folder full of all of my environments in the Americas.
Okay, but that means that's
like, interesting, because I'm also a visitor here.
But I guess it depends on how you look at your product, right? If you have like completely different, maybe, I don't know, apps which are, in either region, you may want to first have the region and then production. But if it's like just some replica, then you might want to have the production first.
Production, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but with a page like this, the production tier acts as a tag anyways. So it's not like you need to organize by folder anymore. Like you're going to pull all your production tier environments into this page, right? So using the folder as an organizing scheme is less necessary to organize by tier.
Yeah, that's also the question. Like, what if you want to see the other, or filter on the other dimension first? For example, filter for your app, which may have different environments, and then you have in there a production and a staging. But this way you won't have this capability because you always filter by the production tier first.
That's where some tags or labels would be handy, right?
Did any of you ever researched or used, I think they're called OLAP cubes? These data slicing and dicing tools?
Not directly, no.
Because basically what we are discussing is how to visualize a multi-dimensional data in a UI when you don't know the dimensions that the users would love to visualize. And
but like, if we compare it to how other tools are achieving about the same,
that's what I was asking. Yeah.
So, for example, in New Relic, you have an overview of your system based on tags that you can assign, right? So maybe that would be also one of the approaches, because yeah, if the more kind of dimensions we have, the harder it is to structure, I guess. But then we can offload it to the user. If they apply the correct tags, they could also slice by those tags together with the environment name or whatever we already have.
Maybe we can take advantage of like labels here because we do a lot of filtering based off of labels already in other areas of the product.
That would mean that we introduce labels to environments.
Yeah, but everybody else is labeling environments, right? Like,
I mean, it's not an issue. It could even
It's-
make sense, and then you could have all kinds of other views around that. It's not that I'm against that. I was just asking.
yeah, I wonder if we can like reuse the labels though. That's my real question is like if you can import your entire project's MR and issue labels and apply them to environments, like what kind of power does that unlock?
Okay, I will bring in a different topic now that I wanted to ask for a while, because I think these are great ideas and we should definitely look into them. But I think this is mostly for you, Amy, Emily. But the other topic was that when I asked the user problems, what you said that to show them metrics and so on in a single place, and the only metric that I see here are DORA metrics. So what does attention mean? What does critical mean? Is it metrics related or is it process related? Is it that my latest deployment failed and that's why it's critical? Or is it critical because it's just 500 errors all the time?
So, continue.
No, it's just that I missed the metrics part from this design.
Yeah, no worries. I'll give some background too on why we decided on DORA metrics for MVC, and it was mostly because they were already available and easy to implement for the first iteration of this. I know we wanted to look into more metrics going forward, but we were kind of trying to cut this down into like how do we show some useful metrics that we could do for the first iteration that wouldn't be a massive lift on the engineering side. So that's kind of why we landed on the DORA metrics for this version of it. But I was experimenting with like what other metrics we could share up here, like and that's kind of why I wanted to break this into tabs here, but like you could see your requires attention, requires critical right off the bat. Vlad, I saw raised his hand.
Yeah, I think I can elaborate a little bit where I think I know where attention and critical are coming from. In the past, we had, and maybe we still have, but I never seen it use the feature. We had a feature called alerts, which is basically like a separate entity in the GitLab. And those alerts have level, I don't know, like in the logs, warning, critical, and others. So we also had some integration with Prometheus, and we had some option to configure them, and you can actually tie these alerts to the environment. So in the first version of the environments, like the old environments dashboard, which is on the user level, we actually, at least, and don't know if we implemented it, but we definitely had it in the designs. And I think this kind of goings from back there, it kind of went through to this design as well. Actually, but I've never seen anybody using these alerts, and I'm not sure if they are still there, if they are not deprecated or something. Yeah.
I know when we rebuilt the dashboard, I'm 90% sure I made sure the alert still worked. If like an alert was provided, it still shows up. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know the status of our Prometheus integration.
Yeah, we deprecated it. I know that because it's based on the third-based integration. I mean, no, we didn't. Sorry, no, we deprecated one part of it, but not all of it, because you can still connect an external Prometheus instance to GitLab. But then I think authentication is mostly an unsolved issue. So it's only for self-managed, if I remember well. I wanted to get back to the point. I understand the iterative approach, Emily, you mentioned here, that this seems to be feasible, and not overly far-fetched. At the same time, I like to follow a different approach. Typically what I said on Tuesday at the team call, that like, let's have a vision, let's know where we want to end, and let's validate that first, and then say that this is the smallest step we can do in that direction now. Because I'm worried when we do the other way around, in terms of like what's feasible today, then we are not providing the most valuable thing, even in the midterm, actually.
Yeah, that's an actual very fair point, because you don't know kind of where you're building from here afterwards. So it's like,
exactly, and we should validate that as well. And I think that's why UX is super, super important, because without building anything, we should do that, and get the feedback, and after that have a good validation of the initial steps as well, if they make sense, and typically they do. But that would be kind of at the very beginning, deep approach level, how it's a bit hard for me to imagine where we go with all of this. Like like we would break it down even further in the first iteration to not have DORA metrics initially, and then depending on user feedback, we might not want to have DORA metrics, but we would focus on the filters or on something else. But I have no idea where we are going with all of this, actually.
yeah, that's a very fair point. It's like best to have something we want to work towards and then like cut it down from there. So kind of rethinking that metrics area, and like DORA might be the best for the first iteration, but what is like the ideal? And I think
I love DORA, so I think that's a great idea that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. Just at the same time, I miss operational metrics.
Cool. And I think actually that's some of the stuff we might get out of this like solution validation as well, because I was really wanting to focus on like, what is this page missing? What information would you need to see to make this page the most valuable? Are you able to understand kind of like what these statuses mean, and all of those things? So I think some of that will help lead us to like, where do we eventually want to get to with this page. I know too, for the first iteration, these statuses are brand new as well. We currently just have that stopping available status for environments. So I don't even know if that is feasible for the first iteration of this page or not. So I think there's a lot of open questions, but I like the idea of kind of building up a kind of North Star we work towards, and then working it down. And I think we're partially there with this. I think there's some things though that we could definitely adjust and fix up.
Yeah. Based on what I've heard, I think that you didn't receive the necessary information from the problem validation step as well. Like I asked about subgroups, but I know that I have no idea whether it's really a requirement or not.
Yeah.
Because it might not be.
I noticed Vlad raised his hand, so if he speaks to that.
Yeah, I'm super bad at kind of designing something from scratch and thinking of features. Is there any product from where we can draw some inspiration and see how people actually doing those kinds of things? I mean, the obvious thing would be, I don't know, Grafana, where you can build anything from scratch. Probably we don't need something that flexible, but anything else which comes to mind to anyone?
Well, for me, it's basically New Relic because that's what we used exactly for this purpose.
Yeah, I would say as well, New Relic and Datadog are very likely great examples. Argo CD has some kind of dashboarding UI as well. I plan to check out Spinnaker, but I expect them to have something similar as well. And overall, I think, so looking at all up cubes, there are a few open source projects. They're not related to development work, but just to data slicing and dicing. That can be helpful to see how people visualize these multi-dimensional data.
Another is, so sorry, Victor. Another interesting project to check out, I think, could be Backstage from Spotify, because it also provides an overview of environments as well as projects and so on, which actually, my personal opinion, we should really take closer look. Right now, it's in a very kind of early stages, I would say, but I think it has huge potential and it can be also like competing with us in this area.
Backstage is a great idea. Actually, I'm arguing a lot in the product org that we should have a dedicated strategy around Backstage. Yeah.
I just want to go back, Victor, when you kind of mentioned about the previous research done. I wanted to give you some kind of background on this project. It seemed like before I joined Release, there was actually a version of this that was completed and ready to go into production. But because our project level environments page performed so poorly, the redesign there, the design of this was based off that. And that's kind of why this has gone back to the drawing board. So there was like a design available. It didn't perform well at all at the project level. And now we're trying to rethink it at the group level too.
I see. The other question actually is that you mentioned the environments dashboard. And to me, this seems like an environments dashboard, except that it's automatic. It only includes production tier and it has the raw metrics and filtering. But the visual seems to be very, very similar to me.
Yeah, and that was actually on purpose because the environment dashboard, apart from the usability and engineering problems that make it really hard to build on top of, it performed well. Like the design worked really well, and we were kind of taking inspiration from that because it saved
That's
a
what
lot.
I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it saved a lot more real estate. That's kind of why you're seeing these in little boxes and not the lines on the environments page. People liked it. It was just, we can't really iterate on top of it very easily. And there were some usability issues with it. So this is kind of an iteration of the environments dashboard, if you can think on it.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask whether we have feedback about them. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah.
That's reassuring, actually. That's good.
Awesome. And I think the main thing is like the reason we're bringing the statuses into is because people are basing it off the deployment status in that one as well. Because right now you can see your deployment status if it's success, failed, blocked, but that doesn't always equate environment status. So breaking this down a bit more to understand that, because they don't see one-to-one all the time. So that's the one improvement we want to do here is just making it a lot more clear what the environment is actually doing, not just the deployment.
And why do we want to focus on production tier first?
So that goes back to some of the research that production was the one that was asked for first. So again, this is the iterative approach that I think we want more tiers involved in this, and you're able to kind of select the tiers you want to monitor. But in the issue, the acceptance criteria for the first iteration was just focused on the production tier.
Okay.
I had another question. Emily, you just mentioned that we had a version of group environments based on the project page. I agree, like that the current project page isn't ideal, but did we consider actually reusing design still, like from like having basically the same cars on the group level and the project level, and maybe improving with parts of this design, just improving the project level cars, and then using the same ones. And basically the only difference there would be that you have a group like project name before the environment name, and everything else would be the same. And any improvement we do, like it will be immediately visible on both pages, and so on.
Yeah, this is a funny question because I had this discussion with Chris. I was like, do we improve the project page first or do we introduce group level? And like, how do we align them later on? We moved towards like adding in the group level because it was such an asked for feature. People really wanted it. But there is that other issue open about kind of iteratively improving the project level page. And I think if we do this, we'll have to actually go back and kind of take some learnings from this and apply it to that page too. Because I agree, I think they should look very similar. The project level page needs improvements as is right now. And I think we could take some of this and reuse it on the project level. So
I'm just afraid that if we kind of go and implement this from scratch, then we'll basically implement everything twice. And then it will be, I mean, front-end folks can maybe elaborate more, but I think it will be a lot of refactoring joining those two designs together if we ever want to do that. As opposed to just improving a little bit on the current page and then just reusing everything level page.
Well, from my side, I agree, and I think that ideally we should reuse design components between the pages, like environments and deployments and so on. However, right now I think it's a bit complicated because, as Emily said, we want kind of to move forward while also providing the good solution for the users. I don't know. It's basically, I think, pretty hard actually to decide what is the best thing to do right now. But eventually, definitely, we should unify the UX across all these pages.
Yeah, my opinion is that provided this page gets like the proper research and validation before we go and build it out, the result will be the same as if we improved projects first and then built this. We also have we have a whole page still using the old environments dashboard that its transition was just halted because the main environments page went so poorly. So we're in a tricky spot where we just need to figure out something, and then whether that's building, and then if we build something new and it takes off, at least it's a little better to the order doesn't matter in my mind. What matters is the validation, and then it all falls from there. Although on that level, one thing to keep in mind if we do start trying to apply this to the projects page is that we have that whole folder mechanism that we have to keep in mind. That's probably going to be bad, but that's future problems.
Sorry, getting specific to this design back, I would have two more minor, and this is a change of topics. So if anybody has anything else to say about the front end part, then please.
Yeah.
Okay. What I was looking at is the waiting and running lines, and especially with the running line, I would like to see as well how many waiting items there might be that are more recent than the current running one, for example, because that might be something that okay, that's running, that's good, but it started yesterday actually, not 10 minutes ago. And then it's what's going on? And the same for the waiting, that I see that specific commit is waiting or pipeline is waiting, but how many other waiting items are there? These were my first kind of missing items from the page. And the last one, which is really minor, is just the recent activity. Okay, now we say it's 10 minutes ago, but if it was last year, that's would you still call it recent or would you call it latest activity?
I'll start with the second one because I think latest activity is actually a much better word for this because it doesn't take in the time like if it was today or last year. Latest is definitely, I think, a better label there. I know when talking with Chris too, we were like that label is a little awkwardly placed. So I think there has to be a bit of work done on how to integrate that into the design nicely too, because it's kind of sitting weirdly above everything. And then for your second comment, I'm glad we were having this conversation in the other issue where I realized that this waiting block to running, there can like be multiple of these. And I think it's just a decision of like how many do we show here? Do we show like waiting and then a plus like 4 more that they can click into and learn more in? I think there's a way to kind of get around that. But I didn't know that was even a problem until a few days ago when we were discussing it in the other issue. So I'm glad that's kind of tying back into this.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
So no, thanks to everyone for the feedback here. I think this is like great discussion. I did want to ask if Frontend had any questions they wanted to add for the Q&A, just because I know I didn't want to take all the time up with this. But if not, we can continue discussion here too.
I pinged you on Slack, but I have an MR hopefully with a review app up for you to take a look at.
Cool. I can do that sometime.
Nothing. Yeah, it's not like available right now anyway, so.
Cool. Well, it looks like if anyone has any other questions, but
I know it wasn't kind of planned, but it might speed things up if Vlad is here as well, and we had that comment from him yesterday. So if you can perhaps discuss that in the rest of the time.
oh yeah, that would be great. Because I just responded to that yesterday as well.
For those who don't know what we speak about, there is this issue on how to show upcoming and past deployments on a page. And the initial idea was from Andre to have like a checkbox, if I remember well, that's how you call it, a switch. And that morphed into 2 tabs that I was proposing as well. And then we realized that that's like not the best idea. And Vlad had a big summary of what he thinks would be the best. And that's the topic that I thought we might fast track as all of us are here.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if anybody has anything to say, in the meantime, I will add the link if I find it.
I think it's.
Vlad, do you want to voice your point on the last topic before we move on?
Oh, you mean this one in the agenda?
Yeah.
Or yeah, I think Emily already said, yeah, we can have multiple concurrent deployments, and most of the time we don't prohibit that. So it's not like we can show only one on that word, I guess. Or we can show, but there will be criteria which one we show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
if
also
you
want
have like concurrent deployments, then it can always be running because the newer one will override the previous one and you'll never see finished. But I don't know, maybe we should really show like last finished one and latest running one.
Yeah. I also, historically, we just show the most recent non-finished deployment. And there's always been plans to show more of those in the main page, but obviously we've had UI scalability issues there. So just dumping a list of blocked deployments isn't a good solution. And I think approvals really made this harder as well.
Because now we blocked things for another reason.
Yeah. I wonder if like we should start rejecting deployments that are old that are waiting for approval.
Like approvals
Yeah,
after a certain period of time.
I
just
think
if
definitely there should be a
yeah,
mechanism to kind of remove them from the list.
yeah, as long as anything more recent has been deployed. Because you can always rerun them. So I don't I don't know if there's like a major problem there.
Can I jump into it? We already have the mechanism, kind of going back to the discussion Victor started. We already have a mechanism for canceling the old deployments, like not up-to-date ones. It's just a checkbox in the settings of the project. I don't know. So I don't know how it works with the manual build actually. Does anybody tried it? Because like how I would expect it to work is that you can run any manual job, but as soon as you run it, it cancels everything which is older than it. And it's like, if it will work this way, then it will be exactly what Andrew just described. So once you approve the deployment and run it, it will cancel everything which was before, but not after. The problem is that I suspect it may cancel like everything which is not latest. And then while you gather the approvals, you may have another deployment and you'll never get to gather all the approvals before you can actually run it. If you have a merge frequency high enough. But I don't know. We need to test this.
And if I may add a couple, like my 2 cents about the whole situation where you have like really a lot of pending deployments waiting for approvals. So I have a feeling that, for example, what this customer have, like this kind of issue, is really a misconfiguration, and we maybe should provide a better guidance on how to better achieve what they want, because I think they could have totally get away with having basically just real deployments that they want to deploy pending, and the rest would like never be created, because that's what they want in the end, right? They want just some of the deployments to be deployed and approved for that. And I think like having a deployment for every commit is really like something is wrong with this concept.
I can again kind of dive into history here. Be historian of this team, I guess. So in the past, deployment was just a simple database model, which was created only when you were running the job in the CI, which had an environment keyword. And it worked exactly like, I guess, Andre, you just described. Like there was nothing in the deployment page anywhere until you go to the CI pipeline, find the manual job and run it, or it will run automatically. Then it will create a deployment model. Yeah, Shinya would be the best to describe why we changed that to create deployments always. Right now we create deployments every time you create the job in CI, even if it's not running yet. Another kind of, I'll try to find an issue, and again, Shinya would be best to discuss it. But we had another issue about only creating deployments when the job is actually can run. For example, if you have a pipeline, I guess, with the prerequisites for the deployment job, and it's not runnable, then we will not create a deployment. But it's actually a big topic, like when we want to create these deployments. For my concept of what we were discussing on this issue, it actually assumes that you create deployments all the time. And then you'll have this nice log of each commit, and you can execute on the deployments you need. Yeah, but if we don't do it, then you will not have this nice button to run the deployment from the environment detail page. So I don't know, it's actually a good question. We probably should one day brainstorm on when and how to create deployments and what do they mean And we should definitely do it with Shinja because we changed it a few times, I guess, back and forth for the reasons I don't fully remember myself. Yeah.
I mean, the most recent reason was just to make deployment approvals work. Because if you don't have a deployment to approve, how do you, you know?
Yeah. But personally, I like how it works now with when we create deployment, and it makes it possible to make this deployment tool as I was describing on that issue.
I know in regards to the issue, I left my kind of like design opinion on it yesterday. I'm sorry that it took me so long. I just had to catch up with all the discussions. So I know we're running close to time now. I'm not sure if we'll have time to kind of sort through everything right now, but just wanted to give a heads up that I've given my update too.
Thanks, Emily. I actually like your proposal already, and I guess Andrea also gave a thumbs up. Does anybody has concerns about it?
I just read it and it looks good to me.
I really enjoy how Vlad and I had the exact same idea, just in different areas. So thumbs up to that.
In which area you had the same idea?
Oh, just when I was working on the filtering, I also was working on like sorting by created by or finished by. So it was just in a different issue, but we were kind of thinking on the same lines there.
We just still need to not forget to make the users understand that the data is actually different on those views, which might be confusing, I guess.
Yeah. I have for a voice for the first iteration, I liked Victor's idea of kind of just having messaging around, and then for second iteration, I think we could have like an ideation session on how do we actually solve this without having like a permanent banner on the page.
Is it really important? Like if any one of you would sort things by finish that, would you expect unstarted deployment on this page at all?
So that's where I was getting. I don't know if I would expect something that's not finished to show up on the sort by finished. I don't know if everyone thinks that.
I normally wouldn't, but that's how the previous version of the page behaved. So for people who are transitioning, that might break in some patterns.
There was a specific issue where we wanted the not started deployments at the top. And we did it via hacking, like the fact that Postgres puts nulls at the top when sorting. But yeah, we're really running into like scalability issues with these deployment jobs, I think is the problem, right? I'll see if I can find the issue, but it was like 2 or 3 years ago. So, you know, don't hold out hope.
Well, thanks all for the first good design pair session. I think this was really, really productive. So I'm excited to keep hosting them in the future.
Thank you.
Well, everyone has a great rest of your day.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.